Am I the a-hole for not trusting my MIL to babysit? So this is literally my second post on Reddit ever, so if it's not written too well, I apologize. I have nobody else to talk to this about except for my husband and some of my family, but I feel that they're a bit biased. I'm sorry if this is long. This literally goes back 5 years. So a little backstory. I, F23, started dating my now husband M25 in 2020. The first time I ever met his mom, she immediately started interrogating me on political stuff and whatnot. We have the same political views, but that's not important. Even after what seemed to be a year-long interrogation, she acted as though she wanted nothing to do with me. That's fine. I just thought it was because I was the new girlfriend, and she didn't think that we'd last. Well, I come from a dysfunctional/abusive household, and my husband helped me save money and move out to the town he's from. We were about 1.5 hours away before I moved. The job I had lined up ended up falling through, and my husband and FIL hired me to their family business. This is where she started almost competing with me. It would be weird things, like if they complimented me on how hard I was working, this is a blue-collar job and outside, or how fast I was learning, she would say something along the lines of, well, whenever I helped, I did this and this. And she would get very defensive. I was just brushing it off because I was honestly exhausted after working 10-hour days for 6 days a week. Well, the day we had off was Sunday, and we all went to the same church, and me and my husband would eat lunch at Emil's house. I was always invited by FIL the day before, and seeing as I didn't want to be alone or drive 1.5 hours away to see my toxic family, I would accept. Note to add here. My husband gave me my first car. It wasn't anything fancy, but it ran and was reliable enough. I was 18 and he had just turned 20, so it wasn't like we had a lot of options. He put me on his insurance and everything, and his mom hated this because we were only dating for a few months. It was actually almost a year, but whatever. She could never wrap her head around me not having anything, from family to really any belongings. Anyways, if my husband commented anything about my looks, work ethic, or hobbies, she would again get low-key defensive and say something like, "Oh, you like her blonde hair? Should I dye mine that color too?" Or if they commented on something that I cooked for lunch at work, she would almost always say, "Well, I'm so sorry that I'm a lousy cook." Okay, yes, she's not a good cook at all, but we never said that to her. We ate whatever she made and thanked her. So, after dating for a year and a half, my husband proposed, and I obviously said yes lol. During this year and a half, I just really kept to myself around her and didn't do/say anything to rock the boat per se. When I started wedding planning, we had a 6-month engagement. She was constantly trying to take over. I would gently redirect her, or give her some task, so that she'd leave me alone, so I could plan. We don't have the same style at all, so I think that's why she was kind of trying to control everything. But whatever. Mind you, me and my husband paid for 85% of the wedding. One of my husband's family friends was going to do the food for our wedding. We weren't doing anything really fancy, so about a month before the wedding, I reached out to her to get a menu in place and a grocery list so I could buy the groceries and her just make the food. Well, when I started to talk to her, she cut me off, saying, "This is so inconsiderate of you. I have my health and my job that I need to worry about." This was literally the first time I ever talked to this woman, and she just started yelling at me. Her husband told my husband that they would do the food, so this wasn't new news to her. Well, come to find out, she would ask my MIL when I was going to talk to her about the menu, and my MIL would say, "Ick," or "you know how these young kids are." My MIL had my husband when she was 40, and he's an only child, and she's a boomer if that helps paint a picture of her. Well, she never told me that she talked to the family friend. It was almost like this was a small form of sabotage from her. We ended up doing a completely different menu and person to cook, but it just really put a hold on any relationship I was trying to build with her. Now to our reception and wedding. She literally threw a fit because I asked her to not wear the palest pink dress and white shawl to the wedding. It literally looked white, and I'm not the only one who thought so. Then she threw a fit because, in the walking order down the aisle, my husband wasn't walking her down the aisle, my FIL was. I was already super stressed out from literally planning everything, hiring/renting everything, and making most of the decorations by hand that I kind of snapped at her. I didn't say it in a rude way, but it was in front of everyone at the rehearsal dinner. I said, "You've had your wedding. Let me have mine." That shut her up, and she left soon after. The day of the wedding, she found out that I was doing a first look with my mom and dad. Even though my childhood with them was hell, I loved them and wanted that moment captured by the photographer. Well, my parents obviously couldn't have a special moment with me, and her not have one with my husband. So during my supposed getting ready photos, the photographer was nowhere to be found. Turns out she pulled her away, so she could have first look photos too. I was mad, but I didn't want it to ruin the day, so I let it go, even though we paid upwards of $2,000 for photos. Whatever else she tried or did to steal the show, me and my husband paid no mind because we honestly just wanted to get the wedding over with and be away from his mom and my dad because they both were trying to make it about them. Immediately when we got to our honeymoon destination, she's trying to call and just chat with him every day. He didn't answer because hello, it's our honeymoon. When we got back and had our weekly Sunday lunches, she starts in about wanting grandbabies, then changes and says that we're too young for kids. We were 20 and 22. We got married in March of 2022 and found out I was pregnant in January of 2023. I didn't want to tell anybody at first, but my husband was really worried about insurance, and since his parents have the same insurance, he made me call his mom and ask if everything would be covered. I know this was important and a real fear of his, but I was sad that I had to pretty much tell her the day after I found out. Well, her response was, "I thought you were going to wait?" Which one? I never talked about kids with her, so of course she got that idea, and two, I didn't want her opinion on me having kids. I needed insurance info. But whatever. I found out really early. I was like 5 weeks, I believe. Well, she wanted to announce right away, and I said no. She kept pestering, and I finally snapped and said that if she announced before me and my husband do, Facebook would find out that the baby was delivered before she did. That shut her up for maybe 5 seconds. Then she took to threatening me. She would say, "I just don't know how much longer I can keep quiet." I finally announced at 9 weeks, which I wanted to wait till 12 like a normal person. I was just so worried that she'd steal the moment. During my pregnancy, all I got from her were passive-aggressive or snooty comments like how I was too young to have a baby or how my bump was too small, how I didn't know how to raise a baby because of my childhood, how now my bump was too big, and a bunch of other shit that made me want to punch her in the face. We didn't find out the gender till birth, and you would have thought that I told her I was sacrificing the baby. Pretty much, if I didn't do something how she thought it should be done, or had a different approach, or made boundaries with her, me telling her that she's not welcome at my house every single day once the baby was here, she had a hissy fit. She also would make FB posts saying, "When is it too early to tell little Peanut that whatever happens at Grandma's house, stays at Grandma's house?" This was instantly a red flag because I told her multiple times that I'm going to teach my children that safe adults don't ask you to keep secrets. I feel very strongly about this because of shit that happened in my childhood. She would call me controlling and whatnot, and I would just tell her that I'd rather be overprotective than a sorry mom. So all of this combined behavior, comments, and just plain attitude of hers, me and my husband agreed that she wouldn't babysit because we couldn't trust her. September rolls around, and I give birth to a perfect baby boy. I went over my due date and had to be induced, and he was a big fella at 8 pounds 9 ounces. The first thing this woman said to me after a 28-hour labor when she saw my baby was, "Wow. He has your nose. That's cute, I guess." I just looked at her and turned to my file and handed him my son. He was the first family member to hold my baby, and that pissed her off. I didn't care. I didn't want to deal with her bullshit while sporting a third-degree tear and while wearing a diaper myself. My son is now almost 2, and during this whole time since he was born, I've gotten hounded from her about her babysitting. I would swerve the questions or say, "I'm a som. It's literally my job to be around him." Anything to shut her up. Well, this February, we found out that I'm expecting baby number 2. She was instantly bitter and cold because she had multiple miscarriages after my husband and was only able to have him. I feel so deeply bad for her, but her not being able to have more babies is not my fault. She projects constantly, telling me how the baby could die at any time. She did the same with my son, and I had terrible PP anxiety. Or she tells me how I'll never be able to handle 2 kids. Not wanting to get into that dumpster fire, I've mostly ignored her comments and such. Well, she found out that my mom has been watching my oldest so he can get used to being around her for when she comes to watch him when I give birth. This set her off. She brought up my awful dad and childhood. My mom was never the cause of anything bad in my childhood. In fact, she was just as abused. This is where I may be the asshole. Since she loves taking everything to FB, I shared a post about not trusting everyone with my children, and I said something like, "Only me, husband, and my mom have watched my oldest. Nobody else has my 100% trust." I didn't say a single person who I don't trust, so technically this could apply to her, my sister, my dad, or my freaking neighbor. Nobody was called out. Well, she commented, saying how that broke her heart and is now really, really pissed at me. My husband is with me and agrees with me, but my file and some of her friends think I went too far and publicly embarrassed her. I feel kind of bad that she's not having the grandma experience that she thought she was going to have, but my kids are the most important thing to me in the world, and I just flat out don't trust her to watch them by herself. Am I the a-hole? Edit to add, when she was raising my husband, she always dumped him off on anyone, her mom, Emile, sister, really anyone who would watch him. Another deciding factor that we didn't trust her was the stories she told us on what she would do with him. She left him as a baby laying on a recliner and put the TV on so she could sleep in the morning, resulting in his head being stuck looking one way. Or leaving him in his car seat all day not buckled in but left in there. Just a bunch of stories or scenarios on what she did or how she would respond.